Good morning, everybody. Got a powerful verse for you today to think about. Isaiah 54:10 says, "For the mountains may depart and the hills may be removed, but my steadfast love for you will not depart, and my covenant of love shall not be removed." Now, this is coming from the great prophet Isaiah, and there's really a lot of meaning, I think, hidden in this verse that is really key for us today. You see, he's talking about the fact, really two things I see, is that he's talking about both time in the world and chaos in the world. Let me break that down a little bit. He's talking about the fact that the mountains may depart, the hills may be removed. Now, outside of catastrophe, the only thing that changes landscape or topography in that way is time. Weathering away of mountains and hillsides and things like that from water and wind and so forth, time has a rather drastic effect on the world around us. Outside of time, the only thing that changes things that powerfully is chaos. And what I see Isaiah prophesying here is that even though time may pass, even though you may experience chaos in the world, such as earthquakes that would shake and move mountains, or even if we're getting metaphorical about mountains being crumbled in your life, regardless of those two things, God's love, his steadfast love for us, will never depart. It will never leave our sides. And in addition, his covenant of peace will never depart as well. So to think about even those two things, I think about the fact that Isaiah is pre-Christ. He is talking about a love that at the time was more relevant to the Hebrews, to the Jewish people, and the covenant that God had with them, his steadfast love for them, and the fact that even though they were regularly experiencing conflict in their lives, they were regularly experiencing trials and occupations and so forth, God never left their side. In fact, when you think about the Old Testament, really the love story that takes place in the Old Testament with God and his people is one that, even though they keep messing up, even though they keep screwing up, walking away, worshiping other gods and so forth, God still pursues them throughout time, despite their mistakes. But then you bring into the fact that Isaiah is one of the greatest prophets in the Judeo-Christian faith. And so I also believe that this verse is for us. It's regarding the fact that the covenant of peace that was coming through the prophesied Messiah, that's coming through Jesus Christ and his sacrifice for us, cannot be taken away. It cannot be pulled from your life. You cannot come out from under the grace and salvation of Christ if you are following, unless you choose to turn away out of free will. Nothing can pull you away, despite time, despite chaos. Nothing can remove that steadfast love and that covenant of peace from your life. And if that's not relevant in today's world, I don't know what is. I mean, time itself, yes, has drastic effects on our life, but when we talk about the kind of circumstances that make it feel like mountains are being departed and crumbled, ripped away, and hills being removed, your life being uncertain, the earthquakes in our life, boy, 2020 is the year, right? In fact, for my generation, I'm not sure that anything has caused such a breaking down of the foundations, the unsettling of one's strong foundational stances as this year. I think even, I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and 9/11 didn't touch the, I guess, impact that 2020 has seemed to have. And I think about the fact that we're talking about this pandemic, and not just its physical, aspects in the world, what the pandemic did to populations around the world, but maybe even more so, the ripping apart of the fabrics of our society, even ripping us apart as we debate whether we believe in the statistics or whether we are pro-mask or anti-mask and so on and so forth. COVID-19 has had a profound effect on destroying what was once at peace in our society. And then you throw in the fact that we are having a significant amount of social unrest just due to different things throughout our society and culture right now. It'd be easy to talk about the American version of that and the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's happening there, but I think it's rippling across the world as well, even looking at recent events like what happened in Beirut. And then you add in the fact that we are also talking about the politics behind everything, and the fact that this year it's a mess for one, but it's such a firestorm that everything seems to be interconnected, everything's being politicized, and we're dealing with an election year that I didn't think anything would top 2016 and the controversy and dividedness of that time, and boy, I was wrong. We are as divided and as controversial and even at each other's throats politically as we have ever been, at least in my generation, from my perspective. It's just a mess. It's an interesting time to live in. We're dealing with world phenomenon. We're dealing with child trafficking that is starting to seep up and become more apparent and in the spotlight of our world. We're dealing with catastrophes and even actual world catastrophes that are happening. You see, the hills are being removed, the mountains are being shaken, our foundations are not trustworthy, we don't know where to stand, we don't know what is safe and what is true at this time. And yet, despite all of that, God is there, and He loves us, and He is with us. And it's hard to walk through a time like this, especially for those who don't believe, and not be looking for blame, not be looking for a way to point fingers at a God and suggest that, if your God is so good, then why are all these horrible things happening? Why would God allow a 2020 to take place? And for many, it's more so the question, why would a God that is so loving cause a 2020 to take place? And that is the mistake, because the roots of what we're experiencing right now are ancient. They are sin, and they are pride, and they are depravity. That is the roots of what we experience this day, and we look at God and we want to believe that somehow this loving God isn't really loving, and he really causes this stuff that we experience, without remembering that this stuff has been around the entire time. In fact, we've pursued this nonsense for millennia, and yet, despite that, turning our backs on God and worshiping idols and creating this mess and depravity and breaking it ourselves, God continues to pursue us. He pursued us all the way to the point that Jesus Christ left His divinity behind. He left the beauty and the peace and the perfection of heaven to come down and be one of us, and to suffer a death He didn't deserve, so that He could save all of us from that due justice. And you can take peace in that today, that no matter what this world throws at you, no matter how much time goes by, no matter how much messier this nonsense gets, that God is still there waiting in the wings for you to call out to Him, to trust in Him, to walk with Him, knowing that nothing this world throws at you can unseat His love in your life. Nothing can break that promise, that covenant of peace and love that Jesus Christ has offered up to you freely with grace and mercy. And my message is just that simple. There's not a challenge there as much as it's just a calling to trust in the fact that God loves you. And nothing will undo it. Nothing can break that away in your life today. Trust in that love. Lean into that love. And when you have that love in your life and you truly, truly get it, then you can extend that love to other people because you are filled with it. And you can bring that peace into other people's lives because you have it. That's my message for you today. I hope that despite what's happening in the world and even the new mess that is going on in Chicago near me, I pray that we find that peace again. We trust in that peace and we learn to love each other as God first loves us throughout all time and throughout all chaos.